You know that feeling, right? That really deep, kind of isolating sense that nobody truly gets you? Well, today we're going to dig into a pretty wild idea. What if that feeling isn't real? What if it's just a trick of the mind, created by the very words we use to describe it?
Oh, we have all been there. I mean, who hasn't felt this? It's that unshakable belief that our inner world, our joys, our pains, our unique way of seeing things, is just completely locked away from other people. It's got to be one of the most human, and honestly, one of the most lonely things we can ever say. But here's a thought. What if this profound feeling of being all alone in your own head isn't some deep cosmic truth? What if it's just a side effect of the very tool we're using to talk about it, language itself?
Okay, before we get too lost in philosophy, let's get practical for a second. When you feel this way, what's your proof? Seriously, how do you actually prove that someone else can't feel what you're feeling?
When you really boil it down, the only proof we have is to just say it. We make a statement. We use words to declare that what's going on inside us is unique and nobody gets it. It's not like there's an emotional thermometer or some device we can point to as hard evidence.
And this is where it gets kind of mind-bending. We end up in this perfect logical loop. We start with the belief that we're misunderstood. That belief makes us say, "You don't understand me." And that statement becomes our only proof. So the proof is a feeling, and the evidence for the feeling is just stating the feeling. It's an argument that just proves itself with itself.
Right about now, you might be thinking, but wait, my actions prove it. But think about that for a second. How do we make sense of actions? We describe them, right? We judge them, we build stories around them, and we do all of that using language. The meaning of any action still gets filtered through the words we use.
So all of this leads us to the core idea for this whole explainer, the concept that we're all living inside a kind of prison, one that's built entirely out of words, a semantic prison. And this quote just nails the problem perfectly. Language gives us this incredible power to create a detailed, personal feeling of a unique self, but it's a feeling that language itself can't possibly prove in the real world. It's like it's pointing to a place on a map that it can never actually take you to.
So here's the crucial takeaway from that. This whole thing creates two different versions of us. On one hand, you've got the self we feel, that subjective, one-of-a-kind person built from all the stories we tell ourselves. But on the other hand, you've got the self we objectively are, a biological creature, with the same physical and chemical needs as every other human on the planet. Language is what creates that gap between the two.
Okay, so if we're all caught in this language trap, that seems like a pretty big design flaw, right? I mean, why would we evolve a tool that creates such a deep sense of separation? What possible good could come from that?
It kind of feels like a bleak conclusion, doesn't it? We're all just locked in our own little prisons, made of words, never really able to connect or be understood.
But what if that's not the whole story? What if this prison has a hidden door? Or even better, what if the bars themselves are actually what help us find our way through the world?
Let's try to reframe this whole thing. Instead of a prison, think of it as a tool for what sociologists call social identification. It's basically how we figure out who we are in relation to everybody else. So when we say, "You don't understand me," we're not just pushing people away, we're actually sending a signal. It's a complex social move that, weirdly, appeals to the shared human desire to be understood.
So that phrase, "you don't feel what I feel," suddenly becomes this really powerful social tool. It's how we carve out our own unique space in a crowd. It's a kind of backwards way of asking for empathy. And at its core, it's how we manage our relationships and just function in a community.
All right, so let's tie all these threads together. We started with this deeply personal feeling of being alone, and now we're seeing it as a fundamental part of how language and society even work. And this right here is the beautiful paradox of it all. The very same tool that builds the walls of our individual self and makes us feel so separate is the only tool we have to build bridges and actually connect with other people. We need that feeling of separation to define who we are so that we can then go out and seek connection. So in the end, that profound, sometimes painful sense of self, of being unique, of being misunderstood, it might just be a feature of the game we're all playing. Just a play of words that lets us be both an individual and, at the same time, part of a community.
And that leaves us with one last, pretty powerful question. If this deep-seated sense of self is really just a story we build with language, doesn't that mean we have the power to change the words we use, to tell a different story, maybe a more connected one?